Dun, 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 dun. We are live. That's the new opening. I think we need to do some theme music, like opening music, closing music. Seeing as Paul is the creative force in this group, Paul, you've got to write a jingle for the next podcast, okay?
It would be done with a 5-string banjo. Is that okay?
That's okay. Yeah. Beverly Hillbillies. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 28 of the Moor Insights Strategy Data Center Podcast. Episode 28. 28 is an interesting number. It is the second, what is known as perfect number, which means it's a number that all of the numbers that divide into it also add up to 28 itself. So 1, 2, 4, 7, and 14. Add those all together, comes up to 28. Interesting tidbit for you. Yep. I know, I'm just throwing it out there. There are more fun facts, but I'll leave it at that. Paul's probably really excited by all of that. Yeah, I figured you would be, Paul. So, hey, listen, good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'm going to go through the standard disclaimers. Don't take anything we say as investment advice. If you do, it's on you, not on us. Maybe it's on Will as well, but certainly not on Paul or I. That's part one. Part two, if you like what you hear from us, like and subscribe. Also, if you have feedback, send us a note, send us a text, send us a comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Anyways, how are you guys doing? Good week so far, and into a good weekend.
TGIF.
Yeah. Will, you're in Bastrop, or are you in Key West?
I'm in Bastrop this week, so I've been home for a good month, and I'm going to be home for another 3 weeks. So I'm enjoying the reprieve and being productive and getting little things done around the house. So all good.
Yep. Excellent. And Paul, you are in the Austin area as well. You're up in Cedar Park or something like that?
Yeah, Cedar Park, yeah.
Okay. The trouble of Cedar Park. Okay. Yeah. You're the guy I keep reading about in the police logs. I got you. Okay. Excellent.
No, they haven't caught me yet.
Anyway, we have a chock full show today. We're talking Cisco. We're talking IBM. We're talking Dell Nutanix going steady. We're talking Black Hat, AI, and of course, our friends at HPE. Lots to talk about. We're going to get through this in a timely fashion. I doubt it. We're going to have fun and meander a little bit, but that's all right. That's what makes this interesting. With that said, let's jump right into the first topic we want to talk about, which is Cisco and their Q4 earnings. And I think this is you, Will.
Yeah, so let me take it away. Thanks, Matt. So Cisco reported its fiscal year Q4 earnings, and there were some interesting highlights here. Security continues to be a great performer for the company, although they're building from a relatively small base. But with a renewed focus on security, 81% product growth from a sales perspective in Q4. Observability, another area that's small but growing, 41% growth. But the real highlight to note is networking. Networking down 28%. That's pretty significant. I mean, that's the core business for Cisco. As a result, right around, it was probably the same day, Chuck Robbins, the CEO, announced a management realignment where G2 Patel, G2 has been leading security and collab. G2 will be taking over networking. Jonathan Davidson, that's been leading networking, is now reporting to Chuck as a CEO, confidant, assistant, whatnot. But, from my perspective, the company has been on a simplification strategy with both networking and security, folding that into a cloud delivered offering. And some might wonder, has having, multiple executive leadership team members managing these different parts of the business sort of thwarted that effort. So from my perspective, this is likely an effort for the company to further drive simplification. Having one leader managing soup to nuts for product is probably a good thing. G2 is now the chief product officer for the company. Jonathan has been a fantastic, management member. It'll be interesting to see, what happens there. I did wish him well as he sort of sorts through all of that. But Yeah, it's very interesting. The company also reported that it's finally gotten over a lot of the COVID hangover. And so, even though areas like collab were flat, they're seeing light. They're through the supply chain issues, and in general, it was pretty positive. Last time I checked the stock, it was up a bit. So, and apparently Chuck and some of the other executive leaders were in New York, doing all of the CNBC interviews and that sort of thing. So, all in all, positive, with the exception of networking, but I do believe that the company is, focused on the right things to reverse that slide. So I don't know, Matt, what do you think?
So I get a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
First, is the 41% growth in observability, is that a function of Splunk?
So that's a very good question. So this quarter is the first quarter that combines Splunk. And so, yes, certainly Splunk is contributing to that growth. But when you look at prior quarters before Splunk was added, the company was moving on a pretty good clip.
Sure.
Now, the overall top line revenue was quite low because it's a category that the company continues to focus on and build out. But I do expect that in subsequent quarters, we're going to be seeing further acceleration around observability and security, because a lot of what Splunk does, their IP, that technology feeds very, very nicely into security. But great question.
One more question and a comment on it too.
Yeah.
A comment on my question. It feels to me like networking, seeing a drop in networking is somewhat inevitable. I hate to say it, right? But with open compute, with as a service taking off, and companies doing their own, and OEMs doing their own networking solutions, and the opening of networking standards, it just feels like there's a natural, I hate to use the word commoditization of networking. And plumbing that is going to naturally drive people to price and not premium, right?
Yeah.
With that said, I think, even though security maybe is, still kind of nascent for Cisco, it's really not. But I mean, I see security and observability as the next big thing, right? Because all of the networking they've done and the networking footprint they have lends itself so strongly to both of these categories are kind of spaces, right?
Yeah.
Observability and security. I mean, they're all kind of networking, and having a good feel for networking and kind of what's going on in my plumbing is critical to both of these spaces.
No, I couldn't agree more. And you continue to see a convergence of security and observability and networking. And all you have to do is look at companies that are very, very keenly focused on secure networking. Yeah. And that includes companies like Fortinet and Nile. Nile is a startup. And in fact, I'm going to do a gratuitous plug for our viewers. If you're interested to learn more about Nile Secure, I'll be doing a fireside chat on the 21st of this month. And if you hit my social media handles, you'll be able to find more details about that. But the companies, in my mind, that are really focused on secure networking are really hitting the market in the right fashion. And if you think about it, the parallel is to companies that are embracing cloud first architectures.
Yeah.
And I would argue, you mentioned as a service is taking off. It hasn't really taken off from a networking as a service perspective. It certainly has in other areas, and I think part of that has been, a lot of companies are very traditional in the way that they procure networking infrastructure. They like to hang it Wi-Fi's, and they like to deploy top of rack switches and that sort of thing. And so it's a different motion for them. Yeah, there are advantages from an operational cost perspective because you can treat infrastructure as an operational expense. But I do think with the success you're seeing with the Fortinets and with Nile, who, by the way, Nile is backed by John Chambers, former CEO of Cisco, I think you're going to begin to see more and more people move in that direction. But just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, good thoughts.
Yeah, they're going to be cutting, what is it, like 6 or 7% of the workforce?
That's a good point. So there is a reduction in force in play. We're seeing this across big tech, right? So Dell, massive reduction, but it's almost like a Dell. I mean, I don't want to knock my former employer, but you can almost set your watch every year. to the rifts that occur. I've experienced that in my career. My brother has as well. But yeah, part of what Cisco is doing is a restructuring. So they're reducing the workforce, and they're likely doing that. I mean, typically that's to cut the dead wood. I hate to say that, but it's also to double down on areas that are high growth, like for Cisco when it comes to security and observability.
Yeah,
It's going to cost probably around $1 billion to do that restructuring.
Yeah.
And to me, that it sounds like that they may be anticipating some challenges coming up in the near term.
Yeah, there could be some headwinds.
Yeah, but to what you said, Will, there's always a natural pruning that takes place at virtually any big tech company, and we've all been in the industry for a long time, and layoffs are kind of a natural part of the employment cycle, right? It's just a fact, and I think a lot of companies way overstaffed in COVID and are trying to normalize, kind of come back to normal staffing levels after we're out of that period. Anyway, we can go on all day about this.
We could,
but we have. I'm a little bit less impressed with this upcoming headline, but that's all right. And I'm unimpressed because it comes from Paul. Paul, what the heck is an ML-KEM? Are we going to call it KEM?
Can I call it a ML-KEM?
ML-KEM, if you're a farmer, it could be ML-KEM. If you saw this last night when you were reviewing it, you probably didn't get any sleep wondering what ML-KEM was.
all night long.
Anyway, the U.S. Department of Commerce, NIST, announced their first 3 quantum-resistant cryptography standards this week, and they're needed to, eventually quantum computing is going to get to the point where it's able to unravel things like RSA and TLS and different encryption, because they're based on classical mathematics, and the new post-quantum cryptography standards that they approved are different technologies. It's taken 8 years for them to get to these. It's actually four new standards, but it's taken 8 years to get to that point. And what they've announced is ML-KEM is a key encapsulation method of encrypting digital assets. It used to be called crystals, Kyber, but they've renamed it with the standard of their standard, which means, I forgot exactly what it means. I'll think of it in a minute. The other one is ML-DSA, which is the old crystals dilithium. Mm-hmm. It's a lattice-based algorithm. And the other one is SLH-DSA, which is the old Sphinx, and that's a hash-based digital signature scheme. So Falcon is one that it was approved, but they're going to bring it out later. So the ML-KEM stands for Module Lattice-Based Key Encryption Mechanism. So if you're curious about that.
I love how you say these things, Paul, like, everybody knows, the old lattice-based stuff versus fantastic. Go on.
Or the dilithium crystals. I mean, doesn't that power the Star Trek Enterprise?
That's Star Trek stuff. Yeah. Just education. Lattice is like kind of an imaginary 3D thing with a bunch of points in the grid, and these points exist in different dimensions. And the lattice-based encryption depends on mathematical problems that are related to those lattices. So it's like one of the problems is trying to find the shortest vector or shortest distance between some of these points. So key encryption is just what it says. It's like a pair of keys. And hash functions is a mathematical algorithm, and it takes an input and makes a kind of a fixed size string of bytes, and it's like usually a hexadecimal number.
So Paul, what's the real world kind of not implication, but the real world kind of impact of ML-KEM?
Well, all of these algorithms will be in use. And like I say, IBM has got a system called Quantum Safe that we're getting ready for the point where these digital assets can be compromised with quantum computing. And it's a long process. It's going to take a couple of years for a company to actually get to the point where they've implemented a quantum safe environment. IBM's advantage, they've revised their quantum safe program, their system, and it is built now so that it's got flexible cryptography built into it, where it'll recognize when different threats come in and recommend changes and build an inventory of things that needs to be done. So it's a pretty serious system. There's some downsides to the new standards. The old RSA and TLS that are more commonly used is got short keys and short signatures, and these new ones have got much longer keys and much longer signatures. So it's going to impact the latency and how these things are used. It's going to have an effect on the edge devices that don't have a lot of storage and that type of thing.
Sure.
Well, anyway, these are the first of many to come down the years. I mean, probably in another 10 years, we'll have some more of these standards, probably shorter. But quantum computing, will continually improve, and it will continually have the ability to probably go out and hack some of these assets using even these encryption methods. But it's going to be a long time out. So.
Yeah. So real quick, and I don't want to belabor the point too much, but kind of talking, Will made a joke around Star Trek and kind of science fiction-y, right? But tying that back, is this a solution, or is this a kind of a standard that's being set for a problem that doesn't yet exist because quantum is so nascent and infantile in its kind of life?
The estimate it's going to take another 7 years for quantum to reach that. I mean, there's a lot of ranges there, but kind of the average is around 7 years before quantum actually becomes capable of having where we've got a fault tolerant machine with a huge number of qubits, a million qubits or something.
Yeah. Okay.
And these devices are built for that future, but it's going to take a long time for a company to go in and equip itself for that protection. So.
Sure. I got you. Excellent. Right on. So that was going from science fiction back to today, I guess. I feel like a little inferior because I'm not talking about hyper warp speed or anything, but that's all right. So, see, I got a little creative with this. Dell and Nutanix get serious,
Okay.
right? Like
Yeah.
dumber.
Impressive.
Yeah. So what's this about? Back in, there's been a lot of disruption in the virtualization, hybrid cloud kind of infrastructure modernization space ever since Broadcom acquired VMware. And that's not a positive or negative about VMware, Broadcom, or any of the players in the space, right? It's just a reality, right? Lots of change, and IT doesn't like change. IT organizations don't like change. And companies like Nutanix have done a good job of taking advantage of this disruption by going out and building partnerships and building on those partnerships. Nutanix has done it with Cisco. They did it a while ago with HPE. Supermicro has been a long partner. But interestingly, back in May, Dell, who was, effectively owned VMware and was responsible for such accelerated growth of VMware, and vice versa, back in May at around the time of Dell Tech World and VMworld VMware Nutanix.next, Dell and Nutanix announced a partnership whereby they were kind of getting the band back together and building, the intent to build integrated solutions and kind of joint go-to-market activities. So lo and behold, this week, announcement comes out with some of the fruits of those labors. The first is the Dell XC Plus, which is a fully integrated hardware and software contained solution and it's a hybrid cloud solution. Dell hardware, Nutanix cloud platform, builds out that cloud environment on-prem or the cloud operating model on-prem and connects out to public clouds. Centralized control plane, automated management, and AI-driven tuning of performance. Really cool solution. On top of that, Dell pre-announced, which I thought was interesting because it's a ways off, the fact that its PowerFlex storage will be the first external storage to support Nutanix cloud platform and its Acropolis hypervisor, the AHV. So software-defined storage gives you the ability to kind of scale storage independently of compute. Really cool. This is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, it shows a lot of opportunity in the space. Dell is nothing if not pragmatic when it comes to IT and how enterprise IT consumes technology. And so when I see Dell being so willing to invest time, money, and resources into building integrated solutions and delivering those, it tells me that there is a lot of opportunity for Nutanix in the marketplace. Dell wouldn't do it otherwise. They're very good about kind of leveraging their bets appropriately.
Well, Matt, I would argue that because I'm a former employee of Dell, that they're really good at supply chain and putting things together and doing the validation, like you mentioned, but they're not necessarily an innovator when it comes to the core Lego building blocks, right? No. So I think they would rather spend their money doing what you just described than actually, blank sheet creating and driving that innovation, because it's just not part of their DNA. Right?
Well, yeah, they can't do it. They can't do it. There's no OEM that can effectively, and there are others that are trying to. There's no OEM that can effectively compete with a VMware-like solution in the marketplace. Where I would kind of throw a nuance into what you said is Dell is absolutely a supply chain monster, and while they're not an innovator when it comes to building new technology, they are an innovator they're innovative when it comes to how they approach the market.
Sure.
They're very good at reading the tea leaves of the market and entering markets at the right time, right? You can call it fast follow, a fast follow strategy, and in some regards it is, but in others it's about understanding where their customers' pain points are and coming out at the appropriate time. And that, to me, is what validates what Nutanix is doing. Because to what you said, they're not big risk takers. They don't go and invest time and money and resources into projects that lead to nowhere, right? They don't do science projects. So it tells me that this solution has legs and that Nutanix has a unique opportunity. It also shows, a shrewdness with Dell that I admire in assuring that they're going to be well positioned as the market kind of not transitions away from anything, but kind of opens up and considers other opportunities. So just, I think it's a win-win. I'll be curious to see if the dollars that are required to support like real go-to-market activities around training, activating, so on and so forth, whether those follow. I have no doubt to believe they will. I know the Nutanix OEM marketing team very well, and those folks and the woman who leads it are just
savvy.
They're not just solid, man. They're the best there is. So I have no doubt it's going to come from Nutanix, and I suspect Dell is going to put in the appropriate amount too, because in an era of commoditized compute, you're really going to kind of go out with distinct bespoke solutions, and this could be a good one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my first subject of today. We're going to go from Dell and Nutanix into a topic that we always seem to talk about, which is security.
Yeah.
Will's attendance at the Black Hat conference.
Yes.
Just recently, right?
Yeah, I was in, balmy, Las Vegas, Nevada. I think the average temperature that week was 115. So suffice it to say, I did not pack my swimsuit, did not hang out at the pool, but I did attend 3 days, Monday through Wednesday. Black Hat's an interesting conference. It is a conference for practitioners. And I published a Forbes article yesterday. So for our viewers that want to learn more and get a feel for my insights, go hit my social media handles and you can read the article. But it's very focused on training. I mean, that's important. I mean, there continues to be a huge shortage of cybersecurity professionals. So Black Hat, it's a regional event. So it's in Las Vegas in the US, but they support events in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia. This was my first time to attend. It was interesting. Again, a focus on training. There weren't a ton of product announcements around the event, although in the Forbes article, I did cover HPE Aruba's announcement around network detection and response. IBM had an announcement around threat detection. I actually got to meet with the leadership for IBM security. That was great. Mm-hmm. And some of the team to learn about what they're doing there. Fortinet, right around the announcement, they announced an acquisition of a DLP company to improve what they're doing from a data loss protection perspective. But I want to share some insight around Wiz. And so we've talked about Wiz. They walked away from a huge $23 billion payday with Google Cloud. I mean, that's a lot of do-re-mi, guys, right? Yep. And that was right around the CrowdStrike, we'll call it flub or fiasco or whatever you want to call it. And I published some insights around how that might have been that CrowdStrike, integration DevOps issue may have played a role in the decision there. But it was my first time to meet with Wiz. I met with their lead for analyst relations, met with some product folks. I got to tell you, I was pretty blown away, not only by the depth and breadth of what they do from a cloud security perspective, but the UI and, single pane of glass to instrument and manage a lot of this stuff. So, and the company is very confident about their future IPO opportunities. They mentioned that, hey, we have made a few acquisitions over the years, but the majority of what we created here has been organically roadmapped. And I may have mentioned that on a prior podcast with the two of you, but I'll just state that I do think that they're a company to keep an eye on and watch. I think they have a lot of great opportunity. They're deep in a lot of areas. But let me end with a final note. So I thought this was kind of interesting. So at Black Hat, typically that event runs for the week, and then DEF CON occurs that weekend into the following week. And DEF CON is a hackathon, and so they kind of fit hand in glove. Yeah. This year, Black Hat saw about 22,000 attendees. DEF CON, I'm not sure what the numbers were, but apparently Las Vegas casinos were on high alert, and based on what happened with the MGM, their entire international footprint with a ransomware attack that was socially engineered. But if you can believe this, the casinos were conducting random room checks during Black Hat, and it escalated, to my understanding, over DEF CON because they were concerned about hackers. Now, I don't know, maybe, and this was MGM and this was the Caesars Entertainment Group. Maybe they should have, given me a call and I could have given them some advisory. But I think it's pretty hard to look for nefarious accessories to see that would enable hacking back. I just thought that was a
Yeah.
interesting thing to-
Maybe they left their malicious code in their toiletries on the counter.
in a USB thumb drive or something. But
What are you looking for?
Yeah, but it's interesting, and obviously, when you host an event called Black Hat, which are bad actors, not white hats or red hats, and you host a hackathon, DEF CON, I guess you're going to be a little bit concerned.
I get that.
It's like hosting an event for a nudist club and then searching the rooms for clothes.
For clothing. I love it, Paul.
Paul, were you with me last weekend?
That's what I remember. Yeah.
All right, let's
Maybe
move
we should
on.
move on to the next topic.
Oh,
before we
dude,
get
I forgot to
separated.
move you to the main screen. I'm sorry about that. Paul, let's move on to you and your, of course, creative title, Professor Bot. What is Professor Bot all about? I have a feeling I know.
You're probably right. AI is pushing the boundaries for a lot of things. We talked about, doctors, and they've even got one that has a companion AI that will conform to whatever companion you want. That CEO is saying it's okay if you marry your AI, but this one is more serious. They've got a scientist AI that the company's called Sakana, and based on some research by some people from Oxford and from University of British Columbia. But they've developed AI that is capable of independent scientific research and knowledge discovery. They've got models that currently, models are used to basically assist in whatever science or research we want to do, but we have to supervise them. But the AI scientist is a system that's fully automated for scientific discovery. And it automates the entire research cycle from the time that they get an idea, it gets an idea, until it writes a paper and looks at the peer reviews. It's got an automated research process.
Oh, wow.
It generates novel research ideas. It writes the code and runs the experiments. And it summarizes the results. And it's got some type of iterative discovery process where it continually repeats processes and tries to expand the ideas and create some type of evolving knowledge base. Look at some of the papers that it's written. It's actually pretty clever. They figured out it only costs $15 a paper.
Hey, don't say that publicly, Paul.
It could replace a lot of professors.
Maybe I'll get into a side hustle as an applied research scientist now. Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So,
But I mean, is this the future of research, Paul? I mean, is that kind
it's
of
a research paper. In the we've got it listed. But
That's
it could be it could be produce research papers and all kinds of things that somebody could get a hold of it and generate. I was thinking about trying it for one of the projects I'm working on, just to see how it works.
Yeah.
I do have some. I mean, when you turn AI loose like this, I don't know how much supervision it's got, but when you turn it loose, and it sounds like it goes out and does all this stuff, on its own without a lot of supervision. I'm sure there are some, but it just kind of concerns me that it might be when you turn AI loose, put loose and fancy free, and you don't know what kind of mischief it might get into.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I mean that's where guardrails and the such kind of come into play. But it's it's funny because when we first started talking about AI as an industry, a few years ago, it was Well, it's the kind of the lower wage jobs where that can be automated, and
Yeah.
maybe it's an assembly line. And my mom worked in a shoe factory, so I don't mean anything negative about it, but it's those kind of jobs that maybe get replaced over time. You go from that to, I mean, you look at Copilot for GitHub, and it's Gen AI will write your code for you in the language you want. It will QA itself, and it's a lot cleaner than what humans write. And now we're at the point where teaching and researching can be done. You wonder, where is that limit for what AI can do over time? And not to get science fiction-y, but I mean it's pretty fascinating if you sit down and really think it through.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, look at the medical field. I mean, it's to the point where does better work than diagnostic work than doctors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Holy heck, I'm depressed, Paul.
Yeah. but can it replace what we do as industry analysts?
Oh heck no. Not at $15 a paper.
Well, it couldn't. Yeah, it couldn't match my level of snark that I like to integrate into my in humor and love of music and science fiction. But maybe it could. But I'm a little frightened right now.
Mark is where you're safe.
Yeah, one thing I'm surprised that we haven't seen yet is a line item editor.
Oh.
Yeah.
You can get it to others. I mean, you have to go through and correct grammar and stuff like that, but it doesn't do the line item editing that professional editor does. That's coming.
Yet. Yeah. Okay, on that happy note, let's move to our final topic, which is Morpheus. It should be lowercase g, the god of dreams and HPE's latest acquisition.
Hey, Matt, but to keep with the science fiction theme that we've been riffing on, Morpheus, wasn't he also one of the characters in The Matrix?
Matrix, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to hurt my nerd credibility here. I never saw The Matrix.
What?
Yeah.
You've got to be kidding. First one, amazing. The others, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your homework assignment this weekend, is to watch The Matrix.
Here's the problem. I love Keanu Reeves. But he's forever in my head as Bill and Ted. I can't take him seriously.
Right.
I love him though. I know he's a good actor, but
he's awesome.
All right, I'll go watch it. Anyway, God of Dreams. I didn't say Morpheus is also the god of nightmares. I didn't add that in because I didn't want it to be negative, but it's the god of dream, Greek god of dream and nightmares, and HPE's latest acquisition. So I'm going to go quickly through this to be respectful of time. But so, when Antonio Neri stood on stage in 2019 or so and talked about, his vision of the future, and, GreenLake was introduced.
Yeah.
People over the last few years have been so focused on the as a service consumption based kind of computing element of GreenLake, which is critical, but they forget the real intent there was about connecting data everywhere, right? From on-prem to the edge, from the edge to on-prem, from on-prem to the cloud, from cloud 1 to cloud 2 to cloud 3, and back on-prem, right? It's about the ever-connected world. And that was really what his vision was about. And I think sometimes that gets a little bit lost because we get so caught up in this deliver as a service, but that grander scale, right? So there are some elements that are required to make that work, right? If I'm going to with GreenLake, or if I'm Dell with Apex, or Lenovo with TrueScale, and I follow along this kind of thinking, there are elements I need to kind of build in, or capabilities I need to build into my solution to really make it work, right? Orchestration, manageability, in the present across the life cycle, automation, AI ops, networking, all of these pieces come into play, right? And quietly since 2019, HPE has been building this portfolio to kind of span all of those elements, right? The hardware stuff they've always had, right? The storage stuff they've pretty much always had. They went out and bought a lot of different companies around cloud management. They really more on the FinOps side and kind of optimization side. And then they went and bought OpsRamp, which is a great tool for managing infrastructure and like AI ops driven or IT operations management. But they still had this little bit of a gap that gave you true cloud management, like a single, you were talking about earlier with Cisco, single pane of glass, that single console that allows you to manage your entire environment, regardless of what server it sits on, HPE, Dell, Lenovo, Cisco, Supermicro, regardless of what cloud it resides in, AWS, Azure, Google, OCI, so on and so forth. And regardless of your environment, virtualized, containerized, cloud native, and the workloads, everything could be managed through this single console with APIs on the back end that kind of allow you to manage more effectively. Really cool solution. And so they had this, so that's what Morpheus brings to the discussion. And it was that gap, a little bit of a gap that that HPE had that Morpheus brings in. And I don't know if it's public or not, but for public consumption, but the list of customers that are supported by Morpheus, it's like a who's who of logos. They support the largest installations across the public and private sector. Incredible technology that they have. So it's a great addition for HPE. But more importantly, it takes the HPE GreenLake stack, right, and that vision. And to me, this is like that finishing touch that brings it all to life and allows HPE to say, although you never rest on your laurels, right? Allows HPE with GreenLake to say, we are just about at that point of achieving that vision that Antonio had of that on-prem to edge to cloud connectivity and control and manageability. Super great acquisition for them. Terms of the agreement weren't disclosed, like the acquisition weren't disclosed, but I'm certain that HPE is going to extract its value out of this.
Hey, Matt, I had a question. So, clearly HPE has been a leader with GreenLake. I can remember that exact, announcement, right, with Antonio. Mm-hmm. And boy, that was 5 years ago. So crazy. But I'm wondering, so why couldn't HPE do this internally? Why did they have to wait, 5 years into this journey to acquire a company like Morpheus to kind of put that cherry on and the icing on that GreenLake cake?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look at it as kind of a crawl, walk, run, right? When you see what HPE originally did with GreenLake and how they stood up cloud operating models and cloud environments, it started with through partnership, right? So the long-term vision was to have this HPE stack from hardware all the way up through software stack, right? That was the long-term vision, which takes time to build. You got to do things in compute and storage and networking. You have to do things across orchestration, automation, so on and so forth. They originally were doing it through partnerships, right? So VMware, Nutanix, right? Microsoft, they had bespoke cloud stacks that they built in partnership that they delivered out into the marketplace, which they still offer, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you can't get Nutanix on GreenLake or Azure Stack on GreenLake or VMware. Those are all still available. But to build their own, it took a little bit more time, right? And you gotta build out effectively your own hypervisor, which is kind of the baseline, and then you've got to build everything out on top of that, right? And that's what they've been doing over the last few years through acquisition, through in-house development, and through integration of the two. You can't just go from 0 to 100 immediately. You kind of have to, it's more of an iterative process where you build this piece out, you build out your virtualization stack, and then you acquire a management company, you integrate those two, you look for where you have complementary technologies, where you have conflict, where you have gaps, you buy another company or you build it in-house, and you just kind of build and build and build on top of that, right? Morpheus, to me, when I look at what they did with Morpheus, first, 5 years ago, I don't know that it was really kind of on the radar of many companies. But when I look at a company like Morpheus or even an OpsRamp, you have to get to a certain point before you can consider some of those technology decisions, right? Because before you even say, I'm going to go acquire an OpsRamp or try to, or I'm going to acquire a Morpheus, you have to understand, you have to make the buy versus build arguments. You got to look at kind of what's across the portfolio of all of these acquisitions you've made in the past and what you can leverage. And then you have to, operationally, you have to organize all of those different teams that you've brought in through acquisition over the last couple of years to fully understand where you are. So I think it's really more of just it's an evolutionary process to get here instead of here are the 10 companies we're going to go buy and then we're going to mix them all together.
There's an overlap between OpsRamp and Morpheus data capabilities.
Yeah.
And if they don't manage that pretty carefully, they could end up with some redundancy or confusion.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch. The other thing that's going to be fun to watch is what makes Morpheus so darn cool is it doesn't matter. So in the data centers are becoming this way, right? I might have HPE GreenLake for my for some AI stack that I've stood up. I might have Dell servers sitting in another part of my environment for another kind for my virtualized workloads. I might have Cisco or Lenovo for yet another set of workloads, right? So it's data centers are moving from same server vendor, same chip vendor across my entire environment to more bespoke stacks that have variety, right?
Yeah. And they're optimized, right, Matt, to address those workloads.
Yeah, right. And they're all optimized to address those. But typically that means I need a management console for Dell, management console for HP, right? Morpheus allows you to manage all of that from a single console.
There you go.
That's what makes Morpheus so cool. So in addition to the, dancing that fine line between Morpheus and OpsRamp and making sure that I'm being complementary or additive and I'm not taking away from the goodness of each, I also have to assure that what I don't lose sight or I don't lose touch with that cross-platform support, right? It's tempting for HPE, I would imagine, to say, we've got this gem and we're going to make it work for us and kind of do all these HPE-specific things. I think it's critical to their success to keep that heterogeneous nature of Morpheus alive and keep contributing to it, because that is what enterprise IT really wants, right? Yeah. Great for GreenLake, but it's got to be great for everything if you really want to find success.
Yeah, and Paul, to your question around overlap, the company is going to have another challenge if it gains final approval for its acquisition of Juniper with some product overlap there as well. So I'm pretty confident, and I've been there. I was at Compaq when we were acquired by Hewlett Packard, and when was that? That was
1999, was it?
99 or no, I think it was around that time. Yeah. And I was part of the team that was rationalizing, what we do with consumer desktop PCs, because I was on the Presario team. We had Pavilion coming in, so. Yeah, I think they've got the right folks in place to make those decisions and rationalize product roadmaps and leverage what's great. And it sounds like and I'm very impressed, Matt, with your knowledge of Morpheus, but it sounds like really the diamond here is that common interface.
Yeah, it is. It is. Hey, listen, we have one more thing we want to talk about. We need to come up with a term for this. And Paul, you need a second jingle you need to do for the next, we can do a lead into this segment, if you will. And so it's like getting to know us a little bit better segment. And we ask these really funny and weird questions to try and tease out our personalities and thinking. And the topic this week is music. And here's my question to y'all. You're on a desert island. You can only bring 3 albums with you. That's not the way. Name the top 3 albums to you, musical albums, obviously, to you, as a listener, obviously as a fan. You can qualify that however you want. Best 3 albums, 3 most influential albums, whatever. But let's hear it. What do you got? Let's start with you, Will. What do you got for your top 3?
Well, my first is going to be Foreigner 4, and a little bit of context behind that. So that was the first cassette tape that I purchased when I think I was 15 years old. Jukebox Hero. It's just epic.
Yeah.
And so that got a lot of plays in my 1981 Firebird Esprit. After I souped up the stereo and I put the equalizer with all the blinky lights. And it was awesome. So Foreigner 4, my first. You're going to laugh at the diversity of this. My second favorite is probably Loverboy, Canadian rock. Mike Reno and the team. I saw them in Vegas a few years ago. Working for the Weekend. I'm talking the classic, parachute pants, the big hair that obviously I don't have anymore. But I was rocking a mullet back in those days. So I should dig up my high school senior photo with the beautiful mullet and the red bow tie and that. It was awesome. And then I would say my third favorite, and I'm going all the way back to the 80s, guys, for these. Def Leppard, Pyromania.
Okay.
Just awesome. And I've been a big Def Leppard fan ever since their latest album that dropped a few years ago. A little softer, but come on, Photograph.
Yeah,
right. That song. So those are my 3, and it's a visit back to the 80s.
I love it. I love it. Paul, what do you got?
Tapioca pudding.
What's up with that?
No, it was oatmeal. I think on the last part.
Yeah, it's probably not the music you would expect, but my 3 would probably be Will the Circle Be Unbroken back in the 70s, Nitty-Gritty Dirt Band, Foggy Mountain Banjo with Splat and Scruggs, and the Eagles live album. I forgot what it was.
Oh, Eagles are so awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Very good, man. Wow. So I'm gonna span a couple of decades for mine. The first is from the 70s. I'm gonna go chronologically, and it's more, I don't know if they're favorite 3 or 3 most kind of life-changing or kind of music-changing. First is Elton John, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboys. It's the first album I got. I was like 6 or 7 years old. I got it for Christmas, and I listened to that thing until the grooves came off of the album. It was, and maybe I was a little bit older, but man, what an amazing kind of introduction to music. The second was the Talking Heads, more songs about buildings and food. I heard that in like the 8th grade. I heard "Take Me to the River," which was
awesome.
And I made my mom get the album for me, and it changed my musical taste. I went from loving Kiss and Rush and Led Zeppelin to this new style of musical listening. And the third is a tie. It's U2 War and REM Murmur. And they were both such different sounds for their time, and kind of moved me into that kind of college rock, kind of what became alternative rock era.
So. Oh, REM, man! I remember in college, man. I bought every CD, and yeah.
I saw them twice before they got big and became uninteresting, and they were fantastic. Same with you too; they were fantastic to start out. But
hey, Matt, I have a suggestion for what we call this segment.
Yeah, what is it?
It's real simple. Get to know us.
Oh, I like it. Get to know us. Build that into your jingle, Paul.
Yeah, with a banjo.
I'm not telling anybody anything.
All right. Hey, and I have to call out one last thing. No one has commented on my old school AMD cup.
Nice.
AMD Opteron. So
Opteron.
Yep. Long live the original server processor from AMD.
How old is that coffee mug?
This is from 2015, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We did a Keep Calm and Opteron. Kind of a
I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I came up with that actually, believe it or not.
Did you?
Yeah.
What a
Anyway.
clever marketer you were.
That's how I roll, man. That's how I roll. Listen, guys, thank you for taking the time to chat today. Really great conversation.
Yeah.
Lots of great discussion. Again, if you're listening to us, if you try to claim that we gave you any kind of investment advice, we can fight you in court over this. So don't even bother. If you liked us, please like and subscribe. Give us some feedback and comments on LinkedIn, Twitter, or elsewhere. And if you don't like us, don't tune in next week, I guess, or the week after. But thank you. Y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy the final weekends of summer, and we'll talk to y'all in about 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Thanks guys.
Matt. Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.